trigger that you realize that, look, I need to move from, like you said, running it, doing it myself, to putting things in place?
It was just two people doing the thing. So we realized that, okay, it's impossible. I think the most impactful one that you helped us implement, we feel like the impact of having put that in place has created peace, has created clarity.
You chose to invest in setting up all of this in a year which was like known as one of the toughest years, right?
We were kind of hitting a wall. We realized the gap between what we felt was a good organization and what was needed. The team is working wonderfully well. We have a very, very, very high retention rate. We don't have any issue recruiting.
Statistically, and you're a true example of that statistic, companies that...
We started, we were 8 people. Now I think we're 110. So pure family, high in emotion business is kind of toxic.
How do you interview for mindset and things like that when you're looking for a different kind of person?
I think that, again, 5 years ago, I was looking for... Now we're in a very, very good position.
That's it. I think we can just end the episode.
Hi, everyone. In today's episode, we're going to tell you a really special story. We're speaking with Michael Becker, who's the CEO and co-founder of Diversified Integrated Sports Clinic, also popularly known as DISC in the UAE. This is a beautiful story because they started 10 years ago with just 8 employees, and now they've grown to 5 clinics, multi-geographies, and have about 110 employees. So this story is about his scaling journey. We had the privilege of working with DISC 5 years ago and created the entire HR framework. So we're going to talk about the difference that we made from a business lens, like what was the actual impact on the business, the changes that brought, how that allowed them to scale the business, and just lessons from one business owner to another. What I especially like about the story is that when we first met Michael and his business partner Tamara 5 years ago, what struck us about them was that they were these business owners who had a beautiful, very successful business, but also they were wonderful human beings and employers and wanted to do the right by their people as well as the community around them. They trusted us with their business 5 years ago, and hopefully you will see from the episode what good that brought to them. I really, really hope you enjoyed this episode, so let's get started. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Welcome to the HR Sisters podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
We were so excited to have you on as our first guest.
Am I the first one?
Yeah, you're the first guest that we were thinking of who should we have on the show, and literally you were the first one. If you look at our whiteboard in the office, your name's up there.
Thank you so much.
So we're so happy that you did this.
Yeah.
I think let's get straight into it, right? I'm excited to see what all will unfold today. Amazing. So tell us a little bit about DISC. Tell us about, where you guys are when we worked with you 3 years ago and versus where you are now.
Yeah. So we're a group of clinic. We just celebrated our 10 years anniversary. And it really dawned on me in January when we had this big gathering with all the team, and we had these pictures in the background. I only had dark hair, so it really went, and this is when I realized, okay, 10 years have passed, and it was a good time also to reflect on what happened over the last 10 years, and really this cycle of things that happen in every entrepreneur journey. You start with this, this excitement, and really in the beginning when we started 10 years ago, for me it was pure joy. I felt like I didn't have a job anymore. And then we realized that initially, like everyone, you tend to do the job yourself, and the company grew and they were happy with that. And when you guys came in, it was, I think, 5 years into the business, and we're really hitting this point where the business was too big to be managed by just few people, and we started to need to put some systems in place. And I think so there was really two chapters, like the first 5 years, really like the moms and pop shop doing the stuff, and then the next 5 years. And what was really important in the following 5 years is COVID happened and technology happened, and so many things have changed, also the market in the UAE and in the region. So today we have 5 clinics, 3 in Dubai, 1 in Abu Dhabi, 1 in Kuwait. We started as a sports clinic, so physio, chiropractic, osteopathy. and we evolved more towards medical. And so, us, at the core, we are very ethical. We really wanted to do a good job for our patients. And we realized, I would say in the last 18 months, that we can do more for our patients. And beyond just the physical pain, we can take care about their nutrition and their mental health. And there is some very interesting products coming up in terms of peptides and NAD and supplements. And everyone is talking about the holistic approach. But the Western medicine is very specialized. So, and this is where we felt that the patients are left a bit alone to manage their care. And what we're really trying to create at Disc is this one-stop shop, this one house, this one team to take care of the patient and really help them with their performance. So when we think performance, we're thinking physical performance, but in a way, performance is emotional performance, and your nutrition is going to, be very important, and how you sleep and how you recover. So, this is where we are today.
Amazing. What a story. We're so proud to always talk about DISC and our involvement. And, when we talk about, when potential clients speak to us to say, like, why do we need you? We always talk about a story, but what you've just said there has brought it to life. Can I go back to 5 years when we first kind of met, right? Yeah. What was that trigger that you realized that, look, I need to move from, like you said, running it, doing it myself, to putting things in place?
I think I would say Kuwait, opening in Kuwait, because we opened in Dubai Healthcare City with my partner back then, Tamara, and then we had a new partner, Talal, our Kuwaiti partner, who had studied the market and saw that there was really a potential for us to grow into Kuwait. And I think the back then we felt like, wow, we're doing such a great job, and we know what we're doing, and the business was doing really well. And then suddenly to have to replicate the same model in Kuwait, where by definition we can't be on a daily basis, and people are different and everything is different. And we realized the gap between what we felt was a good organization and what was needed. Because at the end, for me, I'm a system guy. I believe in system, and I feel like to really create the quality, and especially in healthcare. In healthcare, at the end, the doctor, the therapist is the one that is going to provide the care to the patient. And for me, as maybe it's really out of passion that I'm not a doctor. I come from oil and gas, and I think we have a similar. I really wanted to be a doctor, and my way of treating patients, because I can't be in the treatment room with them, is I realized that how much the system is important to create around the therapist and around the doctor, so they can be at their best.
Yeah.
So going to Kuwait, we were trying to recreate a system that actually didn't exist. The system was just us.
You, exactly.
Interact.
Everyone calling you, like, how do we do this? Can we buy this?
Exactly. And Tamara, my partner for everything, which was, medical, but it was just two people doing the thing. So we realized that, okay, it's impossible. And this is when, we found you, and we started working on the process, and we had so many haha moments, like, oh, you should do onboarding. What is onboarding? And thank you so much, by the way, for all the work that you have done. So you helped us create a framework for HR. I've honestly learned so much in the process. My experience before was to work for a large European company, and I've never been exposed to that. So I didn't even know that it existed. And we're so focused on the operation and the patients, and which is needed, of course. But then, you opened a complete chapter of what is necessary.
Yeah.
And there was this first element of, okay, what are the systems that we need to put in place, and even basic policies, and just, okay, what about this and what about that? And I think the most impactful one that you helped us implement was the onboarding. Is how do you bring people on board? How do you explain what is expected? And I think that has been really the foundation for what happened after.
Yeah.
Because we were very much, again, as a mom and pop shop back then. We have grew a lot now, so we're more than 100 people, and we're very organized. And on a daily basis, we feel like the impact of having put that in place has created peace, has created clarity. So we're in a position today where, the team is working wonderfully well. We have a very, very, very high retention rate. We don't have any issue in recruiting, because people actually also are looking for a transparent, fair, well-organized environment. And I think it's a bit rare also in healthcare, where normally the average operator would be a doctor that is a wonderful doctor and grow into opening their practice. But they not necessarily have this expertise or even this idea that the system comes first and people needs to fit into it.
Yeah. That's it. I think we can just end the episode, right? He said, you've just covered everything in one go, which is like music to our ears, right? Talking about how impactful onboarding is to the success of the business and also the success of their talent being be able to show up in their best selves because they've got clear expectations, understand how they contributed, how they are going to be added. It's just, these messages cannot be echoed even stronger. So the way you explained, it's like, I hope other entrepreneurs get those aha moments and, take the time to invest in getting onboarding right. Because statistically, and you're a true example of that statistic, companies that do the onboarding right have the highest retention rate, have great morale, great engagement, and the learning curve, for starting to be, like we say, not productive, because the healthcare, you can't say productive necessarily, but contributing and understanding patients and, moving to patient care is significantly higher. Otherwise, what happens is you have mistakes, errors sometimes, and all those are avoidable, right? So that onboarding is super.
And healthcare, what I see also in the region, there's a lot of people, investors, are looking at it from a capex perspective, right? So money is there, there's return for sure. And coming up with a shiny clinic with all the toys, all the stuff, almost anyone can do it. Then they perceive the doctor or the therapist or the nurse or the patient experience team, like everyone that is involved, because actually for us, there is no hierarchy, like everyone is involved in care. They tend to forget they're not machines. You cannot expect to put a doctor in a room and say, perform. It doesn't happen like that. And this is why I think there's also many cases people are disappointed with the experience because execution is poor, because at the core, the concept of a doctor is not a machine is not fully understood. And I think the next aha moment that I had when I was working with you was really to think about the core of motivation of people. Because when you don't have a system, you tend to think that money or the reward or the carrots, right, or the stick is the only way moving forward. And what is particularly acute in healthcare is patients come to us with their physical pain, but mainly with their emotional pain. And again, if the doctor is not a machine or the therapist is not a machine, he needs to be in an environment where he will be able to receive this emotional pain. And if we ignore it and we're just mechanic of the body and just do this and change your nutrition and do that, we miss the point, which is the being is just, one coherent entity. And what we realize is the system has to, again, be the foundation for the therapist to take out everything which is around the money. And then the money has to be off the table. Like it has to be done. Everything around clarity, when should I work, when I shouldn't work. But at the core, we realize that the motivation for people is also linked to three things. And then it's not me inventing it. It was part of the conversation that we had, but it's going back to the autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I think there's many opportunity in healthcare to implement it, but also many challenges. So if we say autonomy, which is, again, the ability to control your own time, it is tremendously difficult to implement that in healthcare because if the patient is here at 8, you have to be here at 10 to 8, right? And you get ready, and when the patient is here, you have the full availability to do it. But still, I mean, employees have their own personal life, and sometimes they don't feel like coming, and sometimes they went late. So I felt like there was this idea of the framework in terms of the scheduling, but this is also when we wanted to digitalize, right? And back then we were still working on our software after we launched it. And I think it was really because we developed some domain expertise with you that we were able to do a proper digitization.
Amazing.
And I think this is where most of the tech projects are going to fail is tech. I mean, the tech element is just 20% of the realization of the project. What you want to do, why you're doing it is really what matter. So I'm very grateful that in the sequence of events that we had for the company, you were able to come in at a time where we need to develop much more competence in terms of how do we manage people, how do we create an environment. at the time where we're trying to digitize it. Otherwise, the other way around doesn't work. And what we have built was really the idea of flexibility within the work. So when you deport the management of schedule from the person to an AI, then you can absorb a lot more flexibility, a lot more parameters. And I feel like today we're also in a great place because we're offering this flexibility to patients, so to our team, that they can really move around much more freely. The second aspect, which was also important as part of our work, which is mastery, where we feel like to retain and to attract the best doctors and therapists, they need to continuously be learning.
Correct.
Which is really hard to do when the foundation of what is, healthcare, normally you're there to provide sessions. The job of a clinic is not really to treat patients. The job of a clinic is to organize an appointment between a patient and a provider in a safe, compliant environment with license. So at the end, the idea of the business is normally you need to have as many sessions as possible. But then the doctors and therapists are working in isolation.
Yeah.
They're in the room closed. And
It's physically they're isolated as well, right? Because you're literally in just a room by yourself.
absolutely. And you're very much alone, right? And in our team, we have very experienced people, but also we try to develop new, younger talent.
Yeah.
You don't choose which patient is going to come through the door on that day. It can be your first day on the job, and you have the most difficult patient of your career that are going to show up on their first day. So going back to the idea of mastery, for us, the framework, the idea of how do we make people work together really helped us continue on the initial idea of our business, which was to integrate care.
Yeah.
And you will see on many brochures from many businesses, clinics are integrated, and it's most of the time it's just word.
Yeah.
And what integration really entails is really creating this opportunity for people to have time to exchange, to share ideas, share in a structured way, of course, but to be able to learn from one another.
Yeah.
And learning is not top down, right? Learning is very horizontal.
Correct.
So this is really something that we are trying to continue and to always develop even more, is how do we create opportunity for people to work together so they learn from one another.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the motivation driver for people to work with us, is to really feel like, okay, I'm coming, like I have my schedule, I have some flexibility, I'm okay with my salary, but at least when I'm at this, I'm going to continue
To grow.
learning and
Yeah.
grow on it.
Yeah. And what was very interesting when we worked together is you chose to invest in setting up all of this in a year, which was like known as one of the toughest years, right? So to make that decision, and it was a significant investment, not just of money, just time as well, because we were together for I think 7 or 8 months, across 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
There was a lot of backwards and forwards. And so how did you make that decision?
I think we were kind of hitting a wall where we felt, okay, yes, I mean, any process can be improved, but I was starting to see that the healthcare market was changing, and it is a lot more dominated by insurance. By definition, insurance are trying to squeeze, the prices. So healthcare is under a lot of tension. Sometimes people feel in the market, oh, they have clinics and they must be that. It's the opposite.
Okay.
It is a very difficult market to find margins, and it only comes from massive optimization of what you do. If you don't want to cut down quality,
Yeah.
if you really want to continue maintaining quality and hence time, right? You need to give time. You need to manage this time, which is the resource that everyone wants. The patient wants the time. Employees want time. Everyone wants time, and we don't have enough. So we felt like the only path is to grow in size. To be successfully operating a healthcare business, you have to hit a critical size.
Yeah.
Whether you remain very small and you're a doctor, Desma, or doctor on a clinic, and that's it, and you have 2-3 people around you, and you can manage without system. But if you want to be able to provide quality, if you want to be able to be compliant, if you want to be able to follow what the market, you have to hit a certain size. And then this is where creating the size comes from, creating the system. And we felt like to hit this size, we need to digitize this system. So when we grow and we hit this size, we don't have to have an army of people.
Yeah. So you can scale essentially, you can scale in a systematic and sustainable way that you're not kind of adding people and then it's just chaotic at the end of it, right?
Often what happens is people take on digital projects of automation, but they're automating a process and practice as opposed to a process or a policy on paper. And there's a difference, right? Because each person's interpretation of a process practice is very different. And to automate that into a system kind of creates other additional problems. What happens to the investment that you made is you took your process in practice, put it on paper, and then digitize it. So you got a chance to do a proper cleanup and align, streamline, and so on. So when you have a digital platform that reflects how you want your business to run, oftentimes they just skip this step because they are, they have a timeline. Do you think we want to come in step? We want to digitize tomorrow. Yes. So this is something that, a lot of companies often miss because they are in a race for time. They want to scale. They have investors that they are answerable to. Sure. But this conscious decision that you made of converting that time while keeping 3 clinics running and, investing 7 months of pretty much intense work. I remember working late nights and getting email exchanges and so that we could sustain this because we really wanted to move to the way where you can scale out to find clinic.
Yeah. I think one of the things that was also the appeal for us to work with you, right? You were just not a client for us. You stood from a values perspective. You stood for everything that we stood for. Ethics, quality, wanted to do the right thing, but you were just missing the tools. So the intent was there and we came on board, gave you those tools, and then you could sort of implement that intent. So I think I remember we were also super, thinking how fortunate we are to work with business owners, with a business that you have to relate to them on a values level to get, to provide the best, because otherwise we would suggest or create something. And then if you don't use it because you're like, this is taking too much time, even if you just go back to the onboarding experience, a lot of people will be like, I don't have 2 weeks or I don't have a week and I have patience and, that's where revenue is. So I'm just going to put someone straight in. And then just that making a decision of 7 days of taking someone, allowing them, giving them the opportunity to learn, taking that away from them has repercussions much later.
Absolutely. And I think the main challenge is always connecting the dots when we're looking at, digitization of project. Sometimes we look at it just as tool where it is really at the core, what are we trying to achieve? And you really need in your mind to connect all the dots. And this is why I was very grateful that you guys came in because I was missing so many dots, and then someone's like, oh, well, there's this entire, thing that we need to connect. But when you do, this is the only way you have to actually also direct the developers.
Yeah.
And 80% of any digital project, digitalization project fails. 80%.
That's huge.
Remember?
It's that statistic.
And I realized why, because we come from such a different perspective. Like what is obvious to us is completely, not obvious for that. And I feel these projects are failing because the clients, so in this case us, cannot really express very clearly A plus B plus C what is needed. And I think that was the strength of our product is because we're working on these two at the same time, we could also express in this creative process, right? Of okay, we're going to change a lot of things. And now how do we change it? And at the same time, we have tech in the back of our mind. We're very fortunate to be able to do that at the same time. Now we say you can do whether transform or perform. And it's true that if you have an obligation to perform, which is financial, shareholders, you don't have this luxury to transform. So because it was a smaller company and it's just you, again, moms and pops, very family business initially, well, you take on the transform because you want it. Your heart.
Your motivation behind that is different.
But I think that would be one main challenge for other people wants to replicate and say, okay, let's just clean up the system, let's digitize it. Is how much are you willing to stop performing to allow the business to transform and then go back in a new cycle?
Yeah, I think that is such an important point, right? Because a lot of business owners might think, I want to continue to perform and something should happen and then suddenly transformation happens, and it doesn't work like that, right? One of the other things that you also did, and I think a lot of business owners would struggle with that, is, we created a layer, a top management layer. And before you were doing everything yourself, and then you had to relinquish control and allow this management layer to take on
Yeah.
and to manage the team. What was that experience like?
It's more an emotional, personal experience. I think the idea of let go is something that is very difficult for anyone. Anyone who is in a responsibility, everyone will tend like naturally, okay, let me do it, and I'm gonna do it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I can know my way. I think it was the way I see it.
We're guilty of it as well, by the way. So it's not just, oh, we were perfect. It happens to us all the time.
I think it's the temporality of things where if you think present, most of the time it's much faster, right? You do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think the transition is when you have more system and you can start to take a step back and you can really start thinking about the bigger picture. It only happens when you're not in survival.
Yeah.
And many businesses, I mean, you still always have phase of growth and survival and the market change. Oh yeah, great, a pandemic, like cool. So there's always this moment that happen. But I think for me, for my partners, our job is to have this 2, 3, 4, 10 years, vision.
Yeah.
And then realize that it is a collective work. And actually going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Purpose is very important for every employee. Why? The why question. The purpose that we found at DISC, beyond the healthcare, which is very dense in purpose, like immediately you're helping people. This is why I wanted to be in that industry. I think it's the idea of a community. And what has changed when you guys were with us, it was still very much of a family business, right? Very emotionally, people were emotionally involved, and there was, some dramas and in town.
Yeah.
And I think that after we implemented the system and we ran with it and realized that a pure family, high in emotion business is kind of toxic.
Yeah.
You don't want that for your employees, because you're not going to fire your mother, you're not going to fire your friends. So it's important to find this balance between keeping this idea of being open and being inclusive and being one and listening, but also not crossing this thresholds where it still has to remain professional relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that the purpose we found is what we're trying to be is a community.
Yeah.
And there is this nice example. I will get it wrongly, but there was this story about the I think it was the minister or the Secretary of Defense going and visiting NASA before the
Oh yes.
and he's visiting the place and he's talking to everyone before they were preparing the launch to the moon, and he talks to the cleaner and he asks the cleaner, "What is your job here?" And he says, "Oh sir, my job is to put a man on the moon." And I think that to me, this is something that...
Even though I've heard that story a million times before.
But I think it is really at the core. So for me, it struck me where whatever is the position in the company, whether you're the medical director or you're the cleaner, it doesn't matter. Right? We're all part of a community and everyone would have to do a part of the work. And I think this is when you link it to also integration and learning from one another. When you start creating this transversal approach and people feel like, yeah, actually, I'm not just for the job, but I'm part of something which is bigger. And this community is going to serve the public and is going to go somewhere. I think it is so important. So the community is also the core of why we go from, I'm doing the stuff myself and everything, to the community is more important.
Correct.
Building this community is superior to today's objective.
Yeah. And again, that is such an interesting perspective, right? And that requires, I think, a shift in mindset. What was that shift in mindset for you and how did it come about?
A lot of it was burnout, to be honest, is the physical sensation that, okay, I'm becoming the limiting factor. My partners are becoming the limiting factor, because all of us, we had such great intention, but we were also holding the business back because we wanted to be doing things so perfectly that we were not allowing space for other people to fill that in. And I think different people came and went from, in the past 5 years. I think now we're in a very, very good position. We have wonderful directors. So we continue when we expanded on the strategy that we built together, which was really to have a group of directors at the group structure, at the group level. So when we implement processes and when we work on the marketing or when we want to change, this year is a year where we expand the scope of service. We look at it from all the different clinics.
Nice.
Because after that, you can have 10 more clinics. Doesn't matter, right? The system will just replicate.
Yeah.
And
that's the dream, right, for a lot of business owners. But there's work to do to be able to do that replication.
Yeah, it's 10 times more work than we can imagine.
Yeah.
Like 10 times or 100 times more. And what I felt is when we go through this transition, we will not find immediately the right people because it's an always evolving situation. And for instance, the people we have in the team now are very different than the people we recruited back then.
Oh.
But also the business is very different. And the mindset also kind of change. And emotionally, the expectations are not the same. So
Sorry to interrupt, but how do you find different people? Because the role is the same, right?
Yeah.
But how do you interview for mindset and things like that when you're looking for a different kind of person?
I think that, again, 5 years ago, I was looking for skills, right? Because we didn't necessarily have it within the company. So, okay, HR, this procurement, all this stuff brings skills. And we realized that it's again, recruit personality and train skills.
Yeah.
This is the shift that happened. So we are much more focused now on personality and abstraction, capacity to think outside the box. Because also you have a type of people that would be very good at applying a process that is in place, and you need some people like that in the organization.
Yeah.
But the market is changing at a faster and faster rate. I mean, I'm passionate about AI, and now we're really looking at AI agent. So AI agent, what it is, it's digital workforce.
Yeah.
The impact on society, on companies is going to be immense. And as much as I want to develop people and I want everyone in our company to be great, but there are tasks that are going to be given to AI agent that is going to do the job 24/7, no mistakes, no everything scalable. So what do we do with humans after?
Yeah.
And it's really tapping into what we remain with humans: creativity, empathy, interpersonal skills. So you don't necessarily want, I think in this market with technology coming up, you don't really want experts. You want more people with a lot of emotional intelligence, also capacity to adapt to change. Because we didn't talk about change, but one thing that happened after we worked together was there was so much change in the company, and people naturally, all of us, and we're all resistant to change.
Yeah.
So, but now there was the normal pace of change that happened before in any business. Now there is the change that is going to happen with AI, where jobs are going to disappear. So
Everything's going to be redefined in a way.
So the line of directors have to be fundamentally capable, ready, and willing to accept this change, and not say, no, I just want to. We had a strategy, and 6 months ago, I want to. Maybe the strategy is going to change 3 times this, because that's the conditions of the.
You have to be really agile.
Yeah.
And open-minded, so my view on AI coming into play is that there's no room for mediocrity as well. You have to be really good. Your people skills have to be really, really good. And there has to be something special about you as well. Otherwise, if it's just you're just doing something repetitive, then that's the first thing that can get picked up, right?
Yeah. The other thing that I see very important is your critical thinking capability. It's different where you have tools to give you answers, but how do you work around them? That still is, you have to own it. So when in situations where you have to be adaptive and agile, you can't ask, how do I be adaptive? That's something that you have to own, right? So it's your willingness and your capability of being adapted to those changes is what makes anything different. So AI is here to stay. I don't think it's boy.
And as about if it's the CEO of Google or Microsoft, he was saying that we are fearing that jobs will disappear, and they will. But what will not disappear are people with what you just said, augmented by AI.
Yeah.
So one of the skills is to accept that learning AI and learning how to use those new tools has to become part of it. And I still see to this day, like people say, oh yeah, I've heard about, ChatGPT, I don't know what, no, people knows it. Have they already integrated it in their...
They probably haven't.
Sometimes, no, because people like to repeat many times, the what is known, the unknown is always scary.
A lot of companies have actually blocked ChatGPT access into their organizations. Like same as they used to put filters and knots on, social media because of whatever reason. Yeah, then they had to accept. Yeah, so now where people find information, like they search it not just on your internet browser, it's also other places where you find information. So they've had to open up, and gradually they'll realize. So instead of avoiding the question and finding a way how your company is going to use tools like that. It's just blocking it is not solving the problem, right? It's embracing those tools and seeing how can you integrate it.
Yeah.
So that's
And these companies are gone in 5 years. I mean, the market will be very, very harsh with the companies that are doing that.
yeah. So it's definitely a wake up. To say, look, AI is here to stay. How do I integrate it into my business rather than fearing it or resisting it because I've become losing my authenticity or, my employees are not going to work or any of those. Yeah, it's how, like you said, augment the person's role with AI so that they are more not mediocre performing employees, but high employees, which eventually means what? High performing business. So,
The question would be on the culture of the company. For me, the opportunity that I see is really, it's like, 100 years ago, right? Or beginning of the 20th century, 75% or 85% of the world population was working in agriculture to feed the rest of the planet. And this percentage have shifted over the past 100 years. So beginning of the year 2000, 15% of the world is working in agriculture. And why? Because before you needed physical force and you needed strength and you have your donkey and you have this and you have that. And so you had to deploy so much energy. You need a lot of people. But there's the same here. There's so many tasks that we're doing today that are copy, paste, just mind draining kind of thing. I feel that the pink scenario for AI is that it's going to remove this task that no one likes.
yeah.
And that will allow us to maybe work less. We won't have to work 40 hours a week. But focus on, again, what makes us human. So the interaction, the emotions. And some people will struggle, for sure. But I think companies that will re-embrace that and will allow their team to be more human and less of machines, it would be great. It's just more difficult to manage. Right? Because sometimes do this, do that, being just a boss and having people like machines, it's easier, especially in large organization. But I think that also with the Gen Alpha and the new, the younger generation, they would not settle for, I'm going to come in 8 to 5 and I'm going to copy paste. I'm going to do what you tell me to do because you said so.
Yeah.
So we need to reinvent how we're going to manage all these people.
Yeah. Speaking of people, so I'm sure your team has, different generations within the team. How do you manage that? Because I think that's kind of a new challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs are facing. A lot of business owners are like, hey, I have to cater to, multi-generations within my workforce.
I think so I'm Gen X, I'm 47. Everyone who is around my age, I feel like it's very easy. It is more challenging with younger generation coming. We had, for instance, some issue with, we had an internship program. And we realized that sometimes interns were coming with expectations were like, they in terms of doing whatever they want, showing up whenever they want, doing that. I don't feel like coming today. Like, there is a gap in terms of the management of their own frustration, which is not matching what employees were expecting before. Again, I think it's we're back to autonomy. Then it's the idea of having control over time is essential today. And again, people are now accepting to do work that is not meaningful, which is tremendously difficult because sometimes that's the job. You have to be on time and you have to do this job. It's not fun, it's not exciting, but it has to be done. So I think the challenge is how can we create some excitement, some stuff that are interesting for them, but also try to build patience and also the ability to manage that frustration where after 6 months you're not going to have 2 promotions and you're not going.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone really has the recipe. What we like with us is, again, because it's very integrated and it's more skewed towards learning, medical skills or knowledge. For now, it works really well. So we can onboard younger people, and our core is sports clinic. So sports are making people come together.
Yeah.
But yes, it is tremendously challenging, I think, for most companies.
So if you, now 10 years on, if you think back to Michael from year one, what do you think you could have thought differently or done differently if you reflect? And hindsight is always 20/20, as they say, right? But I think we all, if we have to jog our memories back, we're like, oh, I wish I did this, or, I could have done this. Do you think you would have done anything differently?
Yeah, definitely. The system part of things. retrospectively, I don't know what I could have done differently because I didn't have the knowledge.
Of course.
Right. So, but equipped with the knowledge, definitely, or if I were to advise a friend who is about to start his business, I would focus on system before, much more.
Yeah.
Because it just helps. Yes, it is more time consuming in the beginning. I'm very, we were setting up a new company in Italy for everything which is tech related. So initially you really want to get, these features and the tech, and you were thinking about the product, like we were thinking about, okay, the chiropractic care and the physiotherapy, and those are so important. You have to do a good job with that. But to have done the work we've done together actually early on, this is something that I would have put in my initial investment plan, which was not. There was no professional fees in the initial business plan. You say, okay, fit out and this and machine, and then okay, let's get the doctors and let them work. I think that I would have spent more time working on how we, and having this mindset of scaling from day one, whether it is a 2-employee business, you need to be ready to become a 50, 100 employee business. And I feel like 20 is really the threshold where up to 20 you can
Scratch it.
And you can have enough time to sit with different people. What is your issue? Okay, you can organize.
Yeah.
But 20 comes extremely quickly.
Exactly.
And then you are completely buried. And if you don't have a system before, how do you go from 20 to 50? So this is what we've been also experiencing in our growth, because we were 8 people. Now I think we're 110. So at some point we were able to manage it. It just blew in our face.
Yeah.
So yes, that would be the main thing I would have done differently. And if I were to start a business now in 2025, again, the digital part would be an integral, component of it.
Yeah. We also have the same conversation with a lot of folks that come to us, right? Especially when we talk about startups, and because there's a lot of startups coming in. They always talk about our CFO and our CMO and our COO and our CEO, and there's no one looking after creating a framework for people.
Sure.
And the default argument is like, we've all done this. Like, we know how to do it. We're all people managers. Like, we've grown companies. But that's not the point. No one's debating that you can't, but you need to have the tools to be able to do it in a way that you can focus on growing the business and developing the business, and the people that join the company have the tools to be able to have that employee experience that they deserve. And that's the reason that you started.
And whether you're a small business or a big business, people have the same expectation.
Exactly.
They want to hear
As their employers, they're still coming to you for their needs, and as an employee.
Of course. And it's fair. They have to the best. It's not an unfair request.
Yeah, I mean, you don't expect any less of the employee because you're only a 2-person company. So the other way it shouldn't works exactly, right?
Absolutely.
And your scenario where, that all these members have been identified and all these members are people managers, but they don't have something that is cohesive. So what is unified? Yeah, what is unified? Is the business's way of managing. It's not the CMO's way of managing or the CTO's way of managing. Then you start very early on having issues like silos, department-centric cultures, which then you have to kind of break through. That's double work in a way. You have to undo something and then reload. Whereas if you set a better foundation and understand what your culture, and even these 5 people that come together, talk amongst themselves and say what kind of a business you want to be.
Yeah.
And every business is a beautiful business. Whether you're studying tech or healthcare, they're all still managed by people at the core in a very, and success of a business, like stable, is all related to that.
Yeah. I think a couple of other things also come out of that, right? Like a lot of people, when you're trying to do it in silos, they'd be like, oh, if you go to speak to this person, you might get a better outcome for this question, but like, don't speak to this person. And so you develop these reputations and then everyone's coming to you. And then also there's between teams, there's a sense of unfairness, but like they got this and I asked the same thing, and 6 months ago, she got leave and I asked for a and I'm not getting it. And, so having all of that just agreed, documented, and then everyone's just following the same thing, and you just get so much headspace back from it more than anything else, right?
Something that was very useful so for us is really creating a proper salary bending, and to be extremely, objective, measure focused, and to completely, because it's tempting. Yeah, you have a doctor. Oh, I really love this doctor to join us.
Yeah.
And then now he wants a little bit more. Okay, oh, this person or that person. But now we're systematically passing on people, even good profiles, if it doesn't follow the bending, because we feel like it is more important to protect, the rest of the structure and to be fair. Because I mean, everyone knows everyone's salary. You try to keep it confidential, but it never happens.
Of course.
And if this person had a special treatment, why? And first, it's ethically, it's not right. And second, then you have this explosion of, and why him and why not me? And then it's endless. So also something, so this system has been implemented by the person who became today our country manager. And I think it also had like a very, very important impact on the business.
Yeah.
Yes, sometimes we miss on certain opportunities, but in the big picture, having this fairness and this alliance is so important.
Amazing. Internal equity. Because if you don't value your own people, and every new person is that new shiny object or that person that you're bringing, and you're willing to pay more, there's going to be lower morale amongst the employees. Like he said, you can't buy salary now. Not for long, and eventually it's something that everybody knows and talks about. So
and what I feel is we feel among our patients, since COVID, the average mental health status of people have changed. Right. So it is, and the world is getting scarier, and you have wars, and you have uncertainty, and you have climate change, and you have AI. So, my childhood was now retrospectively such a more stable environment. We felt it was chaotic. It was not.
That's so true.
Like every year was the same.
There's so much repetition. Your birthday was there, your Christmas, like there was so much of upheaval.
So you can project yourself. And you can have, okay, I'm going to, get married and I'm going to have children, I'm going to buy a house. So you can project in your mind kind of what is your path and find peace in it, right? And find happiness in it. How things are changing all the time. So I think that the average stress on people have increased, and where they could have coped with a toxic, work environment before, toxicity coming from lack of structure, certain personality, mini bosses, like people, no, they can't. Physically, they can't. And the demand in mental health, in psychology and therapy is through the roof. So I think that for companies to continue growing and thriving, this has to come, and the mental health of your employee has to come at a very, very maximum priority. But taking care of people's mental health also doesn't mean accepting everything and do whatever you want, because this is also very toxic. And I think that the right layer is a mix of organization, that everything has to be like a well-oiled machine, and empathy. So if it's too much of one or too much of the other, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's really this alliance where the system is there, it is clear, it is transparent, it is inclusive, it is diverse, it is everything that you want to be, but also the emotional intelligence would make you navigate through it in a human way, because no one wants to work for an AI in the end. You want to work with you.
Absolutely. So speaking of growing and thriving, what's next for DISC?
So we raised money at the end of last year. We have new partners, do investments. So we're using it to basically do three things. First is this expansion of scope. So we are adding the psychology, the nutrition, everything to be that holistic journey, and to go from trying to propose sessions to a patient. You have back pain. One of our added value before is like we have a very high level of therapists and doctors. So some people were doing 20 sessions of physio somewhere, and with 3 sessions with us, they were like fixed.
Yeah.
But it was more of a session approach, where now we're really trying to propose outcome. And because in the healthcare, people are really linked to their insurance, not just because everything is more expensive. Of course, you may as well your insurance pay for your care, but no, because it's your right? You have an insurance, I want to use it. So the problem is, when you are so focused on using this right at all costs, what comes secondary is actually your health.
Yeah.
And if you have back pain, okay, we can help you with the pain, but what is the core, the root cause of this problem? And we need to really look at the person from the whole perspective. So we are creating programs for our patients that we will propose to patients, to also companies, to help them their management level, or even their employees to be more performing. Then we're also, so that's in the expansion of scope. We're also becoming omni-channel. So we feel like now, if you want to have an experience with us, you have to come to one of our clinic. But we managed now to add a teleconsultation license and a home service license. So the experience is going to become a lot more hybrid, where some stuff has to be done in clinics, of course, but some stuff can be done online. Some can be at home or in your workplace, and to communicate differently to our patients and communities to let them know that this is not just a physio chiro clinic. We can really take care of a person holistically. So this is what we do this year, and if everything goes well, we hope we can resume more geographical expansion next year, and having more satellite clinics in Dubai. We feel there is a need for that, and maybe Saudi Arabia, we will see. But one thing at a time. For now, it's really focusing on this task.
What a story, Michael. And, we are so privileged to have been a small part of it at the very beginning.
Thank you so much.
It makes us so happy when we see our clients thrive, and in an industry in healthcare that is the need of the hour for everyone. Tell us, where do people look for you? Where do they come? Your website, where do they find you? Where do you want to know?
Website, www.disc-me.com. We have a new website, and we're going to launch online booking this month. So we're very excited. I think it's a need for patients to be able to book their appointment individually. We have a clinic in Dubai Healthcare City, in JLT, in Alcos, in a paddle court, Central Paddle, which is more performance driven. So really, we're coming up with very interesting paddle clinics and paddle specialized programs. In Abu Dhabi, close to the Corniche, we fell in love with the location that we found in a park, and you have trees and you have all this stuff, so it's beautiful. And Kuwait in Al Hamra Tower, where also the experience is very much driven towards wellness.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It was really a pleasure to see you again.
It was so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and that's a wrap.